I never imagined a poor boy could change my life. His guidance started a heartbreaking journey. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun was setting, casting an eerie orange glow over our neighborhood. I could hear the distant sounds echoing: laughter, music, the chaotic energy of life thriving outside. But I was trapped in my silence, heart trembling. In the midst of my chaotic thoughts, I saw him. A boy, ragged and thin, his clothes barely hung on his frail body. His name was Eli. I felt an unusual spark whenever our eyes met, like there was a connection no one else could see. We were worlds apart, me, with my comfortable home and loving family, and him, living in the shadows of our bright lives. He seemed perpetual. Like a haunting melody that lingered in the air. I discovered he could understand things I couldn't put into words. Each encounter felt like a push and pull of our spirits. The mystery surrounding him drew me in. How could he smile through such despair? What did he know that I didn't? As our paths crossed more, snippets of his life surfaced like bubbles breaking the surface of what era: a faded mother, a father lost to addiction, nights sleeping on cold park benches. I could feel the weight of his world weigh heavily on my chest. It tore at me, deep down. But one day, he whispered a secret that shattered everything I thought I understood about life. He said, "When you lose everything, you find what truly matters." His words haunted me. Were they regret? Hope? I didn't know. I was captivated, confused, and terrified. I had to peel back the layers of his existence, but it felt like I was digging into his wounds. Yet as I sought answers, the shadows lengthened. Eli wasn't just a boy, he held a key to my soul's deepest fears and desires. As I teetered on the edge of knowing him, the darkness closed in. What would I have to sacrifice to really see him? Then came the day he vanished. Just like that, he was gone. I stumbled through the empty streets, calling his name, my voice echoing back in desolation. I was left grappling with the uncertainty. Where did he go? What did he leave behind? What if the journey didn't end here? What if it was just the beginning of a much darker truth? My heart raced, pounding with questions and fears. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The nights grew heavy after Ella's disappearance, where silence crept into the corners of my mind and nightmares invaded my sleep. I would wake up gasping, a name slipping from my lips without thought: Eli. The sun rose each day to an empty promise, reminding me with each fleeting ray how my life had become a beautifully twisted tapestry of longing and loss. Days turned into weeks, yet the shadow of my boy lingered. I would wander the same streets we'd strolled, searching for any glimmer of him, a misplaced jacket, a familiar laugh. I watched kids play in the park where I first met him, imagining his laughter ringing out, filling the air with a vibrancy I sorely missed. I often stopped by a small, crooked tree that offered shade like a comforting embrace. It was under that tree where he had shared tales of dreams and survival, where hope sprouted amidst despair. Then one afternoon, as I sat lost in memories, an elderly woman approached. Her face was lined with stories, her eyes shimmering kindly. "You look like you've lost someone," she said, soft and warm. I felt my heart crumble at her words, wishing to confide the entire weight of my sorrow to her, to unravel my worries like thread from a spool. "Yes," I managed to reply, swallowing the lump in my throat. "He was a friend. I can't find him." Her gnarled hands patted my shoulder, a gesture so simple yet so profound. "Sometimes, the universe has a way of shifting things until they settle into place," she mused, her voice wrapping around me like a soothing balm. You might find him again, but sometimes, we have to look deeper, past where we've searched before." With that, she shuffled away, leaving behind a lingering sense of comfort that felt foreign to me, a flicker of hope I desperately needed. I wondered if I had been searching for Eli in the same places, with the same expectations, perhaps too shy to sift through the deeper layers of this very city that looked so unwelcoming most days. That night, I made a decision. I wouldn't wait for Eli to find me. I would search everywhere, starting from those hidden corners I had never dared to explore. The more I thought about it, the more excited I felt. Maybe there were dreams scattered in the cracks of life, just waiting to be uncovered. The following days turned into a scouting expedition. I visited shelters, soup kitchens, and community centers. Each interaction felt like a delicate dance where I stumbled over my words, the urgency pulsing through my veins. "Have you seen him? A boy named Eli?" I would ask anyone who'd listen, my eyes searching their expressions for recognition. It was at one such shelter where I finally met Hannah, a kind girl my age with an infectious laugh that rang like a bell. She caught me off guard with her joyful demeanor amidst the heaviness surrounding us. There was an unspoken irritation that clung to me, a shadow, but Hannah seemed not to notice. She wrapped me in conversation, her vivid words painted a picture of resilience. "You're looking for someone important, huh?" she asked while we were cleaning up after lunch service. I hesitated, unsure if I could share this piece of my soul with a stranger, but the warmth emanating from her ushered in a wave of trust. I told her about Eli, his strengths, his stories, how he appeared like a fleeting dream. "Eli is something special," she said, a mix of admiration and sorrow crossing her features. "The world chews people up and spits them out. But sometimes, they come back, changed, but still them." Her words stirred something deep within me, a cocktail of resignation and determination. I wondered if I was losing him forever or if, like her promise, I could catch him somehow in the ebb and flow of this chaotic world. The next day, fueled by Hannah's kindness, I returned to those deeper places, exploring alleys etched with graffiti and passing shady coffee shops buzzing with secrets. I didn't quite know what I was looking for, but each place felt like a step closer to something. My heart raced in anticipation, sensing that a revelation was just around the corner. As day melted into night, I turned a corner near a shabby building and saw a flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye. My pulse quickened. I hesitated, my breath stolen by hope and fear. Slowly, I approached the shadows where I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure. It was a boy, but as I drew closer, I froze. The silhouette seemed all too familiar, yet something was distinctly wrong. My heart dropped as the realization hit me. It wasn't Eli. But in his hand, he clutched a crumpled paper with Ellis' name scrawled across it. "Eli," I whispered, stepping forward. The boy turned, and the look in his eyes was a blend of surprise and wariness, but it was the twitch of recognition that shattered the dam of uncertainty. "Who are you?" he asked, voice laced with suspicion, but it was unmistakably a call to something vast and echoing. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as the world shrank around us, the darkness beckoning, the truth hanging heavily in the air. What had Eli left behind? And why did this boy hold a piece of what I so desperately sought? I stood on the precipice of discovery, my heart beating wildly in my chest. This was not the resolution I craved. Instead, it was an unraveling, a new path filled with even more questions. But one thing was certain: the journey was far from over. The alley was cloaked in shadows, with flickers of light from a distant lamp illuminating the boy's face. For a moment, the world around us fell silent. The only sound was the relentless thrum of my heartbeat echoing against the stone walls. His eyes held a cautious sparkle, rich with untold stories, while Eli's name lingered between USA Bridge, spanning an ocean of uncertainty. "Why do you have that?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of urgency and fear. "Where did you get it?" He glanced down at the crumpled paper in his hand, as if it had suddenly become too heavy to hold. "Found it in the park," he replied, avoiding my gaze. "Thought it might mean something." "Eli, he's my friend. He's missing. I was hoping to find him." The admission felt both liberating and heartbreaking. a strange confession unveiled in the dimming light. The boy shifted uneasily, weighing my words. People go missing all the time. It's easier to forget, he said, an edge of bitterness lacing his tone, bringing a pang of recognition in my chest, a truth I was grappling with daily. And sometimes, they don't want to be found, he added softly, almost to himself, that I felt the walls of the alley closing in, the hesitation hanging between us thick as fog. You were in the park? Did you see him? I pressed, desperate for any lead. He shrugged, a flicker of vulnerability flashing across his features. Not really. I just saw his name. I thought maybe it was a sign. A sign? I echoed, something resonating in the air, a thread pulling at the edges of my heart. What do you mean? The boy hesitated again, his face lighting up briefly before retreating back into shadows. Just sometimes people write things down to remember. Or to let go. His words struck deep. What if Eli had left this mark intentionally, signaling me to follow a trail I had yet to uncover? I found myself wondering if this boy, who seemed to understand loss on a visceral level, might be a piece of the puzzle I hadn't expected. Can you help me? I asked, the sincerity in my tone surprising even myself. The thought of venturing forward, hand in hand with this stranger, both mourning under the weight of our realities, felt bittersweetly hopeful. That he hesitated longer this time, his gaze piercing through the dark, weighing my plea against his own. Why do you care so much? He finally challenged, but there was curiosity layering his suspicion. My heart swelled with the weight of truth. Because I believe he's still out there. I have to believe. My voice softened, the earnestness spilling from my chest. I can't lose him too. For a moment, it felt as if the air itself throbbed with possibility. But then he straightened up, shaking his head. You don't know what you're asking. This city, it can swallow you whole. My name is Joey, and people like us, we don't get to decide what we find or who we help, I whispered. The gravity of his words sank into the ground like roots, entangling us in a shared understanding of suffering. Joey sighed, the fight draining from his shoulders, replaced with an unyielding resolve. Okay. I'll help you. But if things get dangerous, we stop. Deal? The word felt like a commitment, something more than just a pact in the shadows of the alley. As we set forth, uncertainty loomed heavy, while the familiar sights of the city blurred into an endless canvas of stories longing to be told. The roads were chaotic, filled with laughter and sorrow intermingling, yet a strange companionship stirred between us, the pull of shared pain and hope. With each step, Joey shared glimpses of his world, tales of survival woven in the fabric of the city's forgotten corners. I listened intently, absorbing the reality of his strength even in the face of despair. There was weight in his experiences, a reflection echoing back to my own loss, yet painted with different strokes. After a while, we reached a crumbling underpass adorned in vibrant graffiti, an art gallery of resilience against a backdrop of neglect. This is where things happen, Joey said quietly, eyes scanning the shadows beyond. People come here, to hide, to create. You never know who might know something. I nodded, curiosity igniting a flicker of blind hope. Have you seen anyone here who might know Eli? Suddenly, a sharp voice broke through our moment. What are you doing here? A figure emerged, a girl with steel-gray eyes, her presence both commanding and intimidating. The air tightened with a tension I hadn't expected. Joey recoiled slightly, his bravado faltering. Just looking for information, he replied, trying to sound casual, but I could sense his unease. What information? The girl pressed, analyzing us like we were rain-soaked strays she had no intention of letting in. Eli. He's missing. We thought maybe you. I started, but her expression shifted slightly, recognition lighting underneath layers of caution. Eli? You won't find what you're looking for, she said flatly, but there was an edge of hesitation in her words, as if she were holding on to a secret pressing against her heart. As the air thickened with unspoken truths, I realized we were at the brink of unveiling something greater, perhaps even a part of Ella's story that had been hidden away. I could feel my heart flutter, a strange mixture of dread and anticipation swirling within, but just as I opened my mouth to ask more, a loud crash echoed from further down the tunnel, jolting us both into alertness. The girl's eyes widened, and she turned sharply, a deep dread shifting behind her gaze. "We need to go." The urgency of her words sent a chill racing down my spine. Something was unfolding, something that threatened not only our search but also the fragile thread of connection we'd just begun to weave. "Wait!" I shouted, my instincts screaming to uncover more, but I knew this was not the time. As the shadows closed in, I was left standing at the crossroads of discovery and danger. Whatever lay ahead promised to be a turn that would radically change everything, but I couldn't let fear lead me away from finding Eli. Not now. In that moment, amidst fear and uncertainty, a whisper of resolve surged within me. I took a step forward, ready to chase truths that could either shatter or rebuild my heart. But before I could catch up to the girl, she slipped away into the shadows, leaving me standing alone, clutching nothing but the echo of Eli's name, poised for what lay ahead. The echoes of hurried footsteps faded into whispers as I stood at the entrance of the underpass, my heart pounding like a forgotten drum. Shadows mingled and twisted, reflecting my tangled thoughts. Joey had taken a step back, uncertainty painting his features. "What now?" he asked, casting a quick glance down the darkened tunnel where the girl had disappeared. "Follow her," I breathed, feeling a surge of urgency that made my veins buzz. "She knows something." That he hesitated, glancing over his shoulder, hesitant to dive deeper into the unknown. "I don't know if that's a good idea." She looked dangerous, but the thought of letting another lead slip through my fingers was unbearable. "If we don't chase this, we might lose our chance to find Eli." "Please, Joey." With a reluctant nod, he stepped forward and we crept into the murky depths of the underpass, its walls pulsing with the scent of damp concrete and graffiti. The disquieting residual energy buzzed around us, an invitation and a warning wrapped in one. "Do you really think she knows where he is?" Joey asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I hope so," I replied, swallowing down the knot of anxiety in my throat. There's something in the way she reacted. It felt personal. As we traversed further into the underpass, fragments of voices and laughter echoed off the walls, intertwining with the fading light that barely illuminated our path. The atmosphere weighed heavily, each heartbeat a reminder of the stakes tethered to Eli's fate. Joey and I exchanged silent glances, a wordless understanding binding us together. Here we were, two strangers flickering through the darkness, yet buoyed by a shared mission tied to people we loved, people whose shadows lingered just beyond our grasp. Suddenly, a rustle echoed from around a bend in the passage, drawing our attention. It felt like an invitation, a thread pulling us toward something vital. Without thinking, I took a step forward, my breath hitching in my throat. "Wait," Joey urged, but I felt the weight of the moment. This was not just a journey for Eli anymore, but a reckoning with everything I had lost. Turning the corner, I stumbled upon a small gathering. A few figures were huddled together, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a makeshift candle. The girl with the steel-gray eyes was among them, sharing hurried words that dripped with urgency. The atmosphere vibrated with a tension thicker than the dank air surrounding us. "What's going on?" I whispered to Joey, unable to tear my gaze away. "I don't know," he replied, his expression cautious. "But we shouldn't draw attention." As if sensing my gaze, she flinched before turning to meet my eyes. "You shouldn't be here," she warned, her voice low but charged with a strange intensity. "Please," I said, the desperation spilling over. "I need to know if you've seen Eli. He's missing." A flicker of something hesitant slid through her eyes as she wrestled with her next words. I could sense there was more to her than the fearless persona she displayed. Jacob's story perhaps intertwined with hers, our fates threatened to entwine in ways we could hardly imagine. "He's in trouble," she finally whispered, casting a glance at the figures around her. "But it's more complicated than you think." "What does that mean?" I pressed, urgency and fear battling for dominance in my heart. As she opened her mouth to answer, a thunderous crash split the stale atmosphere, making all of us jump. Instinctively, I stepped back, my body pooling in readiness to flee. In the ensuing chaos, someone shouted, their voice slicing through the thick air, "We've got to get out of here now." What was that? Joey's eyes widened, flashing with alarm. Ambush, the girl snapped, her earlier defiance seeping away as panic settled into her features. They're after us. With the weight of the situation suddenly clear, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. My mind raced Ella's name calling out through the veil of confusion, pulling me toward an unexplored darkness that seemed to swallow us whole. Come with us, I shouted, grasping at the girl's arm. We can't leave without trying to save Eli. As she caught my gaze, a flicker of possibility danced within her steel-gray eyes. Fine. But we have to move now, there's no time to waste, she said, ripping her gaze away from the shadows now creeping into sight. The group surged into motion, a chaotic scattering of feet and frantic whispers echoing through the tunnel. But in the rush, I noticed something, the crumpled paper flickering from Joey's pocket, the one he found in the park. It lay there, luminous with a foreboding weight as though it held answers just out of reach. Wait! I yelled, racing to grab him before he could slip away with the commotion. What about that note? Joey's eyes widened in confusion while the girl pressed on. We don't have time, just grab what you can and follow. As the shadows loomed closer, I felt my pulse quicken, each beat a reminder of everything I stood to lose. Yet, as sudden as it was, a fierce determination unfurled within me. The paper, the mystery, our growing alliance was all part of something monumental. Struggling against the current of chaos and fear, I made a choice. 10 more seconds. I called, catching Joey's bewildered expression. We need this. It might lead us to Eli. But just as we grasped the misplaced paper, the tunnel erupted with an indistinct roar, plunging us into darkness. A whirlwind of panic engulfed us, the cruel hand of fate threatening to sever the fragile thread of hope we were grasping. In that moment, I realized we were no longer just children wandering in shadows, we were rebels searching for a truth that could very well change everything. The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed us was the girl's face framed by flickering candlelight, fear and steel intertwined, a promise hanging in the air, fueling my undeniable need to find Eli. But the answer that awaited us on the other side promised to shatter all illusions we had about this quest, igniting a battle not just against the unknown, but against our own frailties that threatened to consume us whole. The chaos surged around us, the sound of shattering glass reverberating off the tunnel walls. I staggered back, my heart thundering like an out-of-control train. Joey's grip on my arm tightened, urging me to move. The girl pulled her hood tighter around her face, her eyes scanning the darkened passage as if the shadows themselves were her enemies. Go! We have to go now, she insisted, her voice cutting through the echoes of panic. The sense of urgency clawed at my insides, pushing me into motion. I bolted down the tunnel, Joey close behind, our feet pounding against the damp concrete like a racing heartbeat. The flickering light of the candle we had just left behind dimmed, swallowed by the depth of the darkness around us. In the midst of our escape, a thick cloud of smoke began to seep through the entrance of the tunnel, a grim reminder that whatever chaos had erupted above us was dangerous. We pressed forward, the girl leading us, her figure agile and resolute as she navigated the maze of shadows. Left. We have to go left, she shouted, her voice piercing through the cacophony. I had no idea how she knew the way, but desperation lent her an almost instinctual awareness. I followed suit, squeezing through a narrow passage that barely allowed room for our shoulders. With each step, I could feel the faint pulse of hope trying to anchor me. Eli was out there, somewhere beyond this harrowing descent into uncertainty. Finally breaking free into a wider space, we emerged in a small clearing that had once been a gathering spot. The walls were etched with graffiti, declarations left by the lost souls who sought refuge here. A rusted swing hung from a half-collapsed frame, creaking in the chill of the night. For a moment, I lost sight of the panic, swept away by the muted remembrance of childhood innocence lurking in a place marred by pain. We should hide, Joey suggested, his voice strained. He cast frantic glances behind us as we hitched breath. They might still be coming. The girl peered into the darkness, her expression a mixture of determination and fear. No time for hiding now. We have to keep moving. But she hesitated, glancing at me, a question poised on her lips. "What is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the tremor of uncertainty crashing over me. Her steely gaze softened for just a second. "If Eli is in trouble, you need to know who you're dealing with." I swallowed hard, bracing myself for whatever revelation she was about to share. "Who?" "The people after us. They've been following him. It's bigger than you realize. Eli got involved in something he shouldn't have." Her voice dropped to a whisper, her own eyes haunted. "Something dangerous?" "Dangerous? How?" Jumbled thoughts swirled in my mind, pushing against the walls of comprehension. "He found something he wasn't supposed to," she continued, glancing over her shoulder. "A package of information. It could expose them, and now they'll do anything to keep it hidden. He was going to deliver it, and then what?" I pressed, heart clenched. "Then he went missing." The weight of her words crashed over me like a tidal wave. I had thought of Ella's disappearance in terms of the personal, of loss, but now I was grappling with the broader implications. He wasn't just missing, he was in danger. I felt the air thicken, the reality blurring between the pursuit of love and the labyrinth of betrayal. My mind raced. I could betray him, too, by letting fear dictate our next move, but I had made a promise to find him. "Well, find him," I stated firmly, the words fueled by vivid memories of laughter and light shared in more innocent times. "We have to." The girl eyed me curiously, seeing the flame of determination sparking back to life within me. "You're brave, but this isn't just about bravery. It's about survival. Just tell me what to do," Joey chimed in, his voice a whisper of fervor. Before she could respond, an ear-splitting crash echoed, sending shards of fear spiraling through me. The entrance to the clearing shuddered as shadows lurked, silhouetted figures edging closer. They were coming. I could see their forms outlined against the dull glow of distant city lights, narrowing the expanse that separated us from safety. The girl's steel-gray eyes focused, and despite the fear encasing my heart, she reached for a nearby rusty pipe, wielding it like a weapon. "Run! We can't let them catch us." As we turned to flee, a gut-wrenching realization surged between us. I had no idea where we were running to, but the ache of loss propelled my every move. Ella's absence was a gaping hole I could feel in every step. In the frenzy, while we sprinted into the abyss, I felt an insistent tug at my mind. I remembered the crumpled paper Joey had snagged during the chaos. What secrets did it hold? I could almost hear Eli's voice in my mind, urging me to seek the truth no matter the cost. "Stop!" I shouted suddenly, halting the group in their tracks. My pulse quickened with a mix of hope and dread. "We can't keep running blind. That paper, what if it's the key to finding Eli?" Joey's eyes widened, uncertainty flashing across his face. "Now? In the middle of this?" "Yes," I insisted, the urgency palpable. "We need to figure it out. It might lead us straight to him, or at the very least, give us a place to start." As we gathered ourselves in that fractious moment, a deafening thud punctuated the air, followed by creeping shadows spilling further into the clearing. In the silence that followed, I suddenly felt the electric pulse of possibility surge within me again, the thought that in chaos, there was often clarity, and in desperation, might lie the answers we sought. But just as we began to formulate a plan, the rusted swing creaked ominously behind us, and I turned, my heart sinking. A figure emerged from the shadows, a revelation so profound it nearly knocked the breath from my lungs. "Eli?" I whispered, disbelief washing over me as recognition pierced the veil of darkness, but the truth that awaited us would soon unravel everything I thought I knew. Our eyes collided across the clearing, and time froze as the world around us succumbed to an eerie silence. There was Eli, but he was different. Gone was the joyful spark I remembered, in its place was a shadow of distress that seemed to cling to him like a second skin. "Eli." My voice cracked as I took a step forward, a potent mix of desperation and hope pulling me closer. "We've been looking for you. Run. You need to run," he shouted, his gaze darting over my shoulder with palpable panic. The urgency dripped from his voice like rain from a leaky roof. Though he was here, the fear radiating from him twisted my heart. "Aren't you coming with us?" I asked, each word forcing its way through the knot of unease. But deep down, I felt an inescapable dread, like the ground beneath our feet was crumbling, and we were standing at the edge of a precipice. "I can't. They know I'm here." "You don't understand." His words faltered, swallowed by the profound fear glistening behind his eyes. The shadows behind him stirred, encroaching closer, their footsteps echoing like thunder. Panic surged through me. A sudden awareness washed over the trio. This was no simple mission of rescue anymore. We were on the precipice of a far more convoluted reality, one where every step felt like walking through quicksand. "Eli, please," I urged, desperate to pull him back to safety. "What happened? What have you gotten into?" The world we had shared once felt like a distant echo hidden in a dark cavern, swallowed by uncertainty. His expression twisted in anguish as if my question had struck him like a blow. "There's no time. They've unleashed something that could destroy everything." His arm waved in a desperate gesture towards the shadows, the threat looming larger by the second. "The information I found, it could tear this place apart." Joey's hand clasped my shoulder, grounding me in the storm of revelations. "We need to get out now," he urged, his voice taut with fear. Eli's gaze flickered to Joey, and a flicker of recognition crossed his features, though it seemed like he was wrestling with it, torn from the truth of the moment. "You brought him into this?" His tone turned sharp as his eyes burned with the weight of betrayal. "It's not like that." I snapped back, heat rushing to my cheeks, embers of frustration flaring alongside my concern for him. "We're all on the same side. We're here to help you." Ellis' gaze turned fearful, shifting from me to the approaching shadows. The tension thickened with each heartbeat. I could almost hear the haunting whispers of countless lives tangled in this chaos, souls caught in the web of decisions others had made. "I need the paper," Eli suddenly exclaimed, his urgency snapping back to focus. "You have it, don't you? The one Joey found earlier?" I stammered, the realization dawning that our seemingly small discovery could change the trajectory of everything. "Now, more than ever, you need to give it to me," he shouted, the fear pulling at him like an invisible chain. "Trust me, it's the only way to protect you both." But in that moment of chaos, another chilling realization sank in. Though we shared a bond of love, trust required more than proximity in times of peril. I hesitated, weighed down by doubt. "What if it's a trap? How do we know you're really there coming? You can't question this." His shout cut through the tension as the shadows loomed larger, taking on forms with malicious intent. "Please. Just trust me." Before I could respond, the shadows surged forward, figures indistinct in the dim light, threatening to fracture our fragile reality. In that moment, driven by instinct and breathless fear, I unclenched my fist and fully grasped the crumpled, fragile paper from my pocket, its secret curled against my palm like a sleeping beast. "Okay, I'll give it to you. Just promise you'll come back," I yelled, desperation spilling into every word. My heart raced as I lifted the paper between us, unfolding the truths contained within. The moment hung precariously as he reached out, but suddenly, another deafening crash erupted, one deeper than any before. The ground trembled beneath us, and I felt a rift of uncertainty, a reminder that all we had ever held dear could slip through our fingers like sand. "Now, Eli," Joey shouted, breaking the spell. But as Eli lunged forward, the very air felt electrified with memories, dreams, and a fear that twisted like a dagger in my gut. As he grabbed the paper, a figure from the shadows broke away and lunged towards us, swift as a whisper but laden with purpose. No! It was happening too fast, time stretching and constricting, and I felt Ellis' grip on the paper pull away. The world swayed, and I was grappling not just for Eli but for the very essence of who he had been and who he had become amidst this chaos. "Run!" Eli bellowed, his voice filled with authority, a tone so commanding it stopped me in my tracks, even as the shadows closed in. I looked back just in time to see the flash of betrayal not just towards Eli, but also towards the trust one had forged with Joey, a bond that now hung by a thread. The shadows began to swarm us, and in the chaos, I felt the bitter taste of fear rise in my throat. Eli was slipping further from my reach, spinning away like a fading star falling into the gravity of night, but amidst the rushing panic, a flicker of resolve ignited within me. I wouldn't let it go to waste. In that moment of chaos, the one truth loomed bright: I would face whatever storm awaited me, even if it tore my heart apart in the process. As the shadows engulfed us, I screamed Ellis' name, a plea that echoed through the darkness and left a haunting ache in the silence that followed. Then all at once we were engulfed. In that heartbreaking instant, with fear billowing around us, I could sense that we were being pulled into something much larger, something that would unravel every hidden truth. And somewhere, amid that swirling tempest of light and dark, lay the very heart of this chaotic journey, a heartthrob of pain, love, and a reckoning I never expected. The shadows roiled around us, thick and impenetrable, as I stumbled back, disoriented. The cacophony of my heartbeat filled my ears, drowning out the sounds of the world. My breath came in ragged gasps, and I felt Joey's hand grip my arm, anchoring me in the swirling chaos. "Stay close," he urged, his voice steady against the maelstrom of panic. But my eyes were locked onto the place where Eli had stood just moments ago. He was already lost, consumed by the darkness. That I tore my gaze away, forcing myself to think. The paper Eli had so desperately seized now lay crumpled in my palm, a whisper of hope amidst the dread. What had he seen in it that could cause such immense fear? I needed answers, not just to save him, but to understand this ominous path laid out before us. "We have to run," Joey said, his voice rising above the chaos. "They're coming for us. We can't." Suddenly, another figure broke through the veil of shadows, dragging the weight of despair with them. It was a girl, small and wild-eyed, moving with a determination that made my heart ache with recognition. As she turned toward us, her features lit up momentarily by a stray beam of light, I understood. It was Tara, Eli's sister, the one person I didn't want to see in this mess. "Tara!" I shouted, relief flooding my veins. "We were looking for Eli." "Where is he?" "Just run," she cried, ignoring my question, the desperation etched across her face making my stomach twist. "He's gone, they took him." "No." The denial burst from my lips before I could contain it, and my knees wobbled as reality crashed back in. I had already lost him once, I couldn't lose him again. "We can't leave him behind. Do you think he wanted this? He was trying to protect us." Tara's voice cracked, and I noticed a flash of guilt cross her eyes. He didn't have a choice." "Then we need to find him," I shouted, pulling the paper from my pocket and thrusting it towards her. "Eli wanted this. He said it could save us." Her eyes darted to the paper, and I could see her pondering. "It's dangerous. You don't know what you're dealing with." "Maybe not," I admitted, "but we can't just abandon him." The air around us thickened with urgency, every heartbeat hammering in the silence that followed my words. It was a moment bruised by simplicity. How could we separate our fates when our lives were so intricately woven together? Joey's expression darkened, anger and fear twisting within him. "We don't have time for this," he shouted, glancing back as the shadows surged closer, their growls growing more insistent. "You want to save Eli? Then we have to go, and quickly." Tara clenched her fists. "But what if he's still fighting? What if he needs us? What if it's already too late?" Joey countered, desperation edging his tone. My heart ached, knowing both of them were right. But I couldn't leave the thought of Eli battling alone behind me. I had to make a choice, one that felt as hard and immovable as rock. "Fine," I said, my voice trembling with resolve. "We'll find a way to get Eli back. But I won't leave him behind. Promise me we'll come back for him." "Promise," Tara echoed, her voice soft but resolute. I felt an unspoken agreement solidify in that moment. Whatever had changed Eli, whatever darkness had encapsulated him, we would brave the storm together. Drawing in a breath, I turned to Joey. "We stick together, no matter what." As we moved deeper into the shadows, the world around us began to fracture. I could feel the weight of uncertainty settling like fog on the edges of my thoughts. Each step propelled us further into the unknown, toward a reality where the very fabric of trust stretched thin, threatening to tear. Suddenly, an anguished scream pierced the air, breaking through the din of chaos. My heart jolted. It was unmistakably Ella's voice, raw and primal, echoing down the abyss of shadows. "No! Please!" Time froze, and a chilling realization spread through me. "We have to go back," I shouted, desperate to turn around, but Joey grabbed my arm, grounding me. "We can't." His eyes searched mine, pleading for understanding. "If we don't move now, we'll lose him for good. No. I cried, my voice ringing back, echoing my refusal to give in to despair. "We might still save him." The swirling shadows seemed to bolster around us, luminous eyes peering from the depths, as if mocking my impossible resolve. Each taunting glance felt like a physical whip on my back, determination wrapped around my bones tighter, urgency coursing through my every vein. Then it hit meth paper. Eli had said it was the only way to protect us, but how? As I turned the crumpled sheet in my hands, I saw then that it was not merely a treasure map but a tapestry woven with family secrets and ancient codes. I could feel its power humming against my palm, pulling or pushing the energies around me. "This is it," I blurted, realizing what Eli must have known. "It leads directly to him." In that moment, hope reignited, flaring within our fingertips. We could reach him, I could feel it. But just as the air crackled with potential, there came a deafening rumble, the ground shaking beneath us violently. "What is happening?" Tara shouted, fear creeping back into her voice. "That we need to hurry." Joey yelled as shadows lunged toward us, breaths hot and fetid. I took a moment to lock eyes with Tara and Joey, the three of us now bound by shared determination. "Trust me," I whispered, holding up the paper as it trembled between us. "We can save Eli. I can feel that we can." Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the paper, and I could sense it pulsing, a heartbeat of its own igniting the air around us. The shadows wailed like banshees, recoiling from the brilliance as if it were purifying fire, but just as I thought we might escape into the light together, something wrapped around my leg, pulling me back, tearing me from the moment. I reached out desperately, but the shadows were relentless, their hands cold and unforgiving, tugging me away from my companions and the escalating chaos. No. I screamed, my voice dissolving into the clamor. The last thing I saw was the look of terror on Tara's face as she and Joey pushed through into the breakout beyond the darkness. They would fight for him, I believed that with every fiber of my being, but now I was alone, drowned within the echoes of shifting shadows, me heart racing against the tide of despair. As the world around me darkened, I felt the flicker of hope fading, but in that final moment, I bitterly wondered if I'd ever crawl back to the light. The shadows whispered their secrets, an ancient hymn laced with betrayal, leaving me with a haunting question: had I trusted too easily? And then I was lost, enveloped in darkness, as the last vestiges of the light flickered and dimmed, leaving me alone with the secrets I should have never touched. The cacophony of chaos faded, the world receding into a suffocating silence that warred against the frantic thrum of my heart. The shadows held me like a cruel lover, tight and oppressive, their whispers echoing through the void, cold fingers tracing along the edges of my fear. I had always been a fighter, but now that fight seemed futile, smothered in the bleakness that surrounded me. "Eli!" I shouted into the darkness, my voice swallowed whole, leaving an unsettling stillness in its wake. I could feel the shadows stirring, as if my words reignited the dark intent lurking within. They recoiled momentarily, transformed into ominous shapes that stretched and twisted, weaving around my legs like living vines, a mockery of my resolve. As I felt the weight of despair grip my chest, a glimmer of light flickered dimly in the far recesses of my mind. It was faint, nearly extinguished. Ella's laughter, adorned with warmth and hope, resurfaced, pulling me back as if whispering secrets meant only for me. I grasped onto that fleeting memory with desperation, letting it anchor me to my purpose. Not just for myself but for the journey that had entangled us all. With every fiber of my being, I shoved against the oppressive tendrils of darkness, struggling to reclaim my freedom. The shadows hissed at my resistance, slithering tighter, seeking to pull me into their cold embrace. Trembling, I recalled the power I had felt emanating from the Papera beacon, a connection to Eli, a map leading through despair toward hope. My fingertips brushed over its surface, and a rush of energy surged through me, ripples of luminescence battling the shadow's suffocating grip. Clenching it tighter, I felt warmth flood my veins. It was the pulse of something greater, solidifying my determination with a heartbeat that almost drowned out my fears. Eli, I whispered again, softer this time, almost like a plea. I'm coming for you. A sudden crack split the air, a fracture in the shadows that surged outward like a bursting dam, sending shards of darkness tumbling away from me. I could barely see through the haze, but I knew my way. The map in my hand had illuminated the truth hidden through treachery. This was not only a pursuit of rescue but a journey toward understanding, toward uncovering what lay beneath the surface of despair. That I began to move, each step deliberate as the shadows flickered and writhed around my ankles, desperate to ensnare me again. Resilient hope stirred within me. I could feel Eli out there in the darkness, his spirit aflame beckoning me to follow. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath me, and I stumbled, falling to my knees. The shadows swirled back closer as if sensing my momentary vulnerability, their whispers twisting into mocking laughter. But through the cacophony, I heard a new sound, the echo of young, playful laughter intertwined with Ella's voice, drowning out my own internal dread. Don't give up on me. Ella's voice resonated, clear as a bell, cutting through the oppressive air. It touched my heart, urging me to tap into the strength hiding within. With renewed determination, I pushed forward, each struggle becoming a dance with the shadows as I rocketed toward the source of his voice. The shadows parted before me, unwilling to withstand my resolve any longer. Suddenly, I burst through into an open clearing, where a surreal light illuminated every crag and curve of the landscape. The world felt alive, thrumming with an energy I had never encountered before, dizzying yet full of potential. And then there he was. Eli stood at the center, a silhouette against the brilliance, his body trembling but upright, as if pulled from the depths of despair by the very light I'd chased. Hope surged in me. He looked lost, yet so remarkably familiar. Eli! I cried, my voice breaking the spell of silence that had wrapped around us. But as I surged forward, something shattered my heart anew. Eli jolted backward as if I were a specter from a nightmare. His eyes widened with fear, and for a moment, recognition and terror waged a silent battle, leaving me breathless and vulnerable. No. You can't be here. He shouted, the words bursting forth like a dam breaking. You shouldn't have come. Stay away, Eli. I reached out, desperation dripping from every syllable. I'm here to help you. Please trust me. We can find a way out together. The shadows hissed around him, dark shapes forming tendrils that pulled at Ella's limbs, anchoring him like a marionette to an unseen puppet master. My heart lurched with every passing moment, pained and agonized at the sight of him being bound, isolated in his own mind. You don't understand. Eli yelled, anguish spilling from him. They're watching. I can't let you. And then I felt it, a heavy presence swelling in the air, a looming darkness that bent and twisted the very terrain beneath us. Shadows quivered, revealing themselves for what they truly were, dark creatures that clawed relentlessly at the edges of my resolve. Suddenly, the temperature dropped. I glanced around, and a tangible fear washed over me. It was unlike anything I had experienced. The shadows moved away from Eli, swirling darkly as an oppressive force stitched itself into reality, a being that sent shivers down my spine, exuding an ethereal malice that seeped into the very air we breathed. Enough of this. It boomed, voice reverberating with dread, sharpening the darkness enveloping us. You will not take him from me. You do not know what you are into. Just as I prepared to fight for Eli, an overwhelming sensation enveloped me, darkened by the very shadows I had sought to repel. I felt my grip on reality begin to slip, threads of consciousness fraying like old rope, hope dwindling in the face of overpowering despair. Eli! I shouted one last time, but the words trailed off, swallowed by an unearthly roar that cascaded through my soul, spiraling me down into the depths of oblivion. And then, just before darkness consumed me, something flickered once more, a heartbeat of light resonating with the whispers of hope. I would retrieve it, I'd unearth it from the shadows, and together we would escape, but as I fell into the abyss, I couldn't shake that chilling certainty. Perhaps there was more at play than I could ever fathom, and this time, the sacrifice might be far greater than I had ever imagined. The sensation of falling enveloped me, a disorienting plunge that stretched on endlessly. I grasped at fragments of thought, my memories slipping like grains of sand through my fingers. The world I had fought so hard to navigate faded, replaced by a suffocating darkness that threatened to swallow me whole. But within that darkness, Ella's presence flickered like a candle, a faint glimmer urging me to rise again, to reclaim my courage amidst the chaos. Wake up. The insistence in Ella's voice threaded through the silence, a lifeline pulling me from the edge of despair. The darkness began to dissolve like mist under a rising sun, strands of light weaving around me, softening the hard edges of fear that I gasped as I emerged, the illumination pouring over me like a gentle rain, a soothing balm against the searing ache in my chest. Blinking, I found myself sprawled on the cold ground, surrounded by remnants of shadows that had once clawed at my spirit. The clearing was empty now, save for the whispers of wind spinning through the trees, a quiet reminder of all that had transpired. Eli was gone, but his laughter still echoed faintly in my mind. Panic gripped me momentarily, then frustration surged anew. "Why did you leave?" I muttered, scrubbing my hands across my face as if to smudge away the residue of the nightmare. "You could have stayed. We were so close," but deep down, I understood. Eli was trapped not just in the shadows but in a different kind of fear, one that transcended this realm. It was a fear of losing me, of dragging me into the morass he had become trapped in. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever held him was more than a mere echo of his past. It was an insatiable darkness. I rose, brushing dirt from my clothes, determination curdling with the churn of chaos that bubbled beneath the surface of my thoughts. I needed to find Eli, to untangle the threads that had woven around him. But a despair laid heavy in the air, a sticky sort that clung to my resolve. As I ventured cautiously through the clearing, I sensed a flicker of light nearby, a pulse of warmth resonating against the coolness of the evening. I approached it with hesitant steps, part curiosity and part fear. The glow morphed into something tangibly, a lantern, swaying gently as if held by unseen hands. I reached out and grasped it, warmth flooding my palm. Hope flickered anew. This was no ordinary lantern, it illuminated a path that extended into the future, lighting the shadows ahead and unveiling the way through them. As I moved forward, that sense of dread kept simmering within me. Was I simply marching deeper into the darkness, or was this a means to escape? I walked on a razor's edge, my heart pounding against the staccato rhythm of my feet. The lantern pulsed, and with each flicker, I could see glimmers of Eli, moments from our past threaded with laughter, glints of courage and joy, and finally, flashes of the darkness that sought to claim him. Suddenly, I heard whispers drifting through the air, ghostly voices that clawed at my ears, carrying messages that were increasingly incoherent. "You won't survive this, you can't fight it," they taunted, distortion mingling with the echoes of Eli's laughter. My heart raced, but I pressed forward, the light in my hand steadying me against the gusts of fear. Then, without warning, the ground beneath me vibrated ominously. A rumble echoed like a warning bell, and soon the air thickened with an electrifying energy that made my skin crawl. Turning my body instinctively into a defensive stance, I prepared for an encounter with whatever had been lurking in the shadows. From the thickness of darkness, a silhouette emerged, vast and foreboding. It coiled around my spirit, something familiar yet terrifying. "So eager to rescue him," it crooned, voice dripping with derision. "But can you bear the truth that lies ahead? Will you step into the despair that awaits?" "No," I shouted defiantly. "I will bring Eli back. I will show him that love can conquer even this." The figure laughed, a haunting sound that wrapped around me like barbed wire. "Love? Oh, child, it's far more complicated than that. You think you have the strength to face what's been hidden? Can you bear the weight of a broken heart when you learn who Eli really is?" A surge of confusion spiraled through me, intensifying the fight within. "What do you mean? Eli is my friend, my life would never what? You think you know him? That your bond can withstand the truth of his being?" The shadows flickered, revealing faces that twisted into expressions of despair. He carries burdens you cannot imagine. You stand at the precipice of your own ruin. If you follow him, you will not return unscathed. Panic began to ignite, and I staggered back, grappling for breath as truth wrestled with denial in my mind. If Eli was more entangled in darkness than I comprehended, how could I possibly hope to save him? The figure leaned closer, the air around me crackling with static. Listen closely, dear one, sacrifice often dances in the shadows. Some truths shatter hearts beyond repair. With a final pulse of energy, the figure dissipated into whispers that circled around me like a storm. I was alone again, still clutching the lantern. My heart beat violently against my ribs as I realized the gravity of what lay ahead. My desire to rescue Eli was at odds with my deepest fears, and the price of failure loomed ominously, shrouded in unforgiving shadows. With every ounce of bravery left in me, I continued forward into the unknown, the flame within myself flickering against the encroaching darkness. But one question spun relentlessly in my mind: was I prepared to face the truth of who Eli truly was? As I stepped into the gloom, the shadows stretched out before me, a path forged by uncertainty. And nestled within that uncertainty was the most terrifying thought of all. Perhaps rescuing Eli would mean losing myself along the way. Each step into the thickening darkness felt like a descent into a dreamless abyss, where hope and despair collided in an endless war. The lantern in my hand pulsed softly, guiding me like a heartbeat, reminding me of my purpose as I forged deeper into the unknown. Memories of laughter, breathless conversations, and shared dreams with Eli lingered on the cusp of my mind, shining bright against the heaviness of uncertainty. But the shadows whispered truths I could hardly bear, fiery implications that clawed at my spirit. What if I was wrong? What if rescuing him meant facing a reality I wasn't ready for? But no matter how profound the fear clawed in my chest, the thought of leaving him behind twisted like a knife. "I will find you," I murmured, the words spilling from my lips like a promise, a vow against the encroaching darkness. As I ventured further, the terrain began to shift beneath my feet, an ever-changing canvas of broken dreams and lost whispers. The air crackled with tension, an energy rising that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand tall. Somewhere beyond, I could hear the echoes of Ella's name, a distorted chant merging with the pulse of shadowy entities lurking just out of sight. Suddenly, out of the swirling shadows, two figures emerged, their bodies cloaked in sorrow. At first, it was hard to make out their faces, but as they stepped into the dim light of my lantern, recognition crashed over me like a tidal wave. It was Joey and Tara, their features strained, eyes filled with a desperate mix of fear and determination. "What happened? Where's Eli?" I sputtered, heart racing as I took a step closer. "There's no time," Tara cried, her voice trembling. "They took him deeper into the heart of the shadows. We barely escaped. We need to hurry, or it'll be too late." Joey's face was laced with anxiety. "We thought we could follow that light, but it's getting more chaotic. The shadows are restless. If Ella's still in there." His words trailed off into a pit of dread, the unspoken fear binding us in solidarity. I nodded, my resolve worth more than the fear anchoring us down. "We can't leave him. Not again." The determination caught fire in my chest, spreading warmth throughout my body. We would face this together, whatever it meant. With a steadying breath, I raised the lantern, illuminating the path deeper into the murky expanse. The darkness flickered hesitantly at the edges of our light, but it felt almost alive, dancing with the energy of anguish yet tethered by a flicker of hope. "This way," I urged, leading the trio forward, shadows swirling behind us, roaring with both longing and rage. Every inch we pressed forward was soaked in memories, the echoes of Ella's laughter merging with the cries of unseen phantoms, but we pressed on. As we traveled further, wisps of mist curled around our feet, each breath becoming a challenge as the air thickened with sorrow. The shadows coiled closer now, brushing against our skin, each one carrying whispers of Eli intertwined with anguished cries. questioning who we were and if we dared to break the boundaries set for us. That we trudged deeper into the heart of the shadows, seeking the source of Elis' energy, pulsing beacon of desperation nearly drowned beneath despair. It was then that the ground trembled violently, sending jolts of panic through us. "Hold on!" I shouted as we stumbled, barely managing to keep our footing. The pulsing light beckoned us closer, drawing out the essence of the shadows that swirled with greed. As we forged ahead, the lantern flickered, illuminating a cavernous space that opened up before us. It was surreal, walls etched with shifting patterns of darkness and light, forming a kaleidoscope of memories that shone against the oppressive void. And at the center, I saw him, Eli, cloaked in shadows, trapped but not broken, his eyes filled with a haunting plea. "Eli." My voice echoed through the cavern, raw and desperate, as if the very act of saying his name would pull him back to me. I reached out instinctively, feeling every fiber of my being aching to bridge the gap between us, but the moment he heard my voice, Eli recoiled, his features twisting in anguish. "No, don't get back." He was surrounded by dark tendrils, writhing around him like vipers, threatening to pull him deeper into their suffocating embrace. Something inside me snapped, the flames of our shared past igniting. "Eli. Fight them. You are more than this. Remember what we shared, the laughter, the dreams. You're not alone." His gaze flickered toward me, uncertainty etched deeply, but beneath it all I could see a flicker of recognition. "I don't want to lose you. Please, you can't." His voice trembled, the fear he carried spilling from him like rain on a parched ground, saturating the air between us with sorrow. Tara stepped quickly by me, clear determination etched on her features. "You don't get to decide his path," she shouted at the darkness, her voice ringing with fierce defiance. Joey clenched his fists, rallying beside her, the three of us forming a protective bond against the encroaching shadows. Together, I choked out, reaching for them both, knowing we couldn't allow Eli to descend further into despair. "We take him back." And with that, we stepped forward, weaving our spirits tightly together. The shadows recoiled slightly, sensing the intertwining of our resolve. "You think love can conquer this?" The darkness sneered. "You'll only incur greater pain." But the aura of our combined spirits and memories shifted the air between us, letting hope seep through the cracks of their oppressive darkness. "That pain will only bring us closer," I proclaimed, a renewed sense of clarity igniting in me with each passing moment. And then, with every ounce of our shared strength, we surged toward Eli, a tidal wave of memories and laughter illuminating the darkness. "Come back to us, Eli," we shouted in unison, channeling all our love as we drew closer. Ella's eyes widened as the shadows began to peel away, reluctant like fading echoes of a forgotten lullaby. "No. You don't understand." But his fear reverberated slowly, the darkness now flickering at the edges. Overwhelmed by the power of our bond, with a final unyielding thrust, we reached him, and the lantern flared brightly, a beacon purging the shadows that threatened to claim him. Ella's face transformed from anguish to sheer disbelief, tears spilling as he lifted his gaze from the shadows, meeting mine, and finally understanding the depths of our devotion. "Please," he cried through trembling tears, reaching out toward me, an olive branch reaching for solace amid chaos. "I don't know if I can. Together we can, Eli," I affirmed, stepping closer. "You are not alone. You never were." In that moment, the shadows began to writhe and scream, pulling back from our union as if they feared the power of what we were carrying. The pulse of our love exploded in a radiant wave that enveloped Eli, breaking the binds that attempted to claim him. And with the obliterating light, shadows dissolved into a tide of darkness receding, sending waves of turbulence through the air, like a tempest yielding to gentle rain. As darkness dissipated, Eli staggered forward, his trembling hands finding mine. "How did you?" he started, but his words faded into a breathless silence as emotion surged, coiling between us like a living entity. "I told you," I whispered, threading my fingers through his. "Love prevails even amid shadow." With those words, we pulled back towards the light, toward each other, and we could feel our hearts synchronize, beating not just for ourselves but for what lay beyond. Hope, rekindled, with the shadows retreating to the far corners of the cavern, I could see Tara and Joey within arm's reach, their faces alight with relief. Together, we stepped towards the edge of the light, the darkness unraveling behind us like a bad memory fading with dawn. As we emerged from the shadows into the flickering light that bathed us, I knew we had faced the heart of despair and reclaimed what had once been lost, not just Eli, but ourselves, but the darkness would always linger on the edges. Yet, now, we would navigate it together. And as we stood there, united once again, Ella's hand clasped tightly with mine, Tara and Joey encasing us in shared warmth, I realized that where there had once been chaos, there grew a pulse of promise. In this moment of victory, as we stepped into what lay beyond the uncertain yet hopeful horizon, I felt a wave of elation wash over me. Healing and forgiveness thrummed through the fabric of our connection, reminding me that love does not merely survive, it blooms in the shadows, lighting the way forward. With my heart swelling, I took a deep breath and whispered, "Together, we are unstoppable." And I knew, even in the face of life's tumultuous trials, we would never walk alone. From the darkness behind us, echoes of our past intertwined with hopes of our future, coalescing into one powerful whisper as we walked hand in hand, "We belong here."